I suppose I will start at the very beginning. Chapter 1. Once upon a time, there lived Yu. Despite his unusual name, his life was hardly any different from others. It was an unusually usual day when he was getting ready to go to work. 2 hours of sleep. What a formality, he said to himself, glancing at his watch. He was used to working at night, just as he was used to never having days off. That morning, the buttons on his shirt were fastened faster than usual. This was not by chance. The tear-off calendar boldly declared Friday, April 3rd. It reminded him that there were only 3 workdays before his holiday, and there was no room for mistakes. His room in a communal apartment was not very big, so it did not take him long to pack. Having got dressed, he quietly walked past the neighbors' rooms into the hallway. Somebody was snoring loudly in the furthest room, which caused Yu to smile for some reason. He walked up to the front door and accidentally stepped on a pile of letters. Picking up the envelopes, he saw his name on one of them. Yu automatically put it in his pocket and walked out. The thought that next Sunday, a huge stone would be removed from the entrance to the crypt of his existence by the power of labor legislation kept Yu going. The trip to work took him by several blocks. He considered early morning to be an extremely pleasant time of day. As soon as he went into the park, he saw a kid in ragged clothes running away from a pack of stray dogs. His eyes caught a swiftly ticking clock hand. It was unclear what had made Yu so anxious. Fear of dogs, or of being late to work. He distanced himself from reality, refused to play any role except that of an outside observer. However, he had had no chance to interfere. The picture of the kid falling down on the ground, breaking skin on his knees, flashed before his eyes. Then of the dogs, losing all interest in him after that. Yu immediately felt nauseous. Everything went dark, and it seemed to him that he was looking at himself through the eyes of the kid. Just like when he was a child. Deja vu! In order to justify his actions to himself, he took the handkerchief with his initials and handed it to the kid. Before the latter could say anything, Yu ran away to avoid further conversation. In a hurry, he went in the wrong direction, unaware of it until he ran into a locked gate on his way. He casually turned around and went to work. He was almost there when he saw his boss enter the office building. He took it as his personal failure, although his watch showed that he still had several minutes. Yu barely got into the office when he noticed two male silhouettes behind him. He turned around to see his boss and a man he had never seen before, a little further away. Figuring that they would have to be introduced to each other, he turned to the stranger first.
Let me introduce myself. You.
My name is Frank.
And you?
To avoid unnecessary explanations, Yu took a name tag from his table and pointed to it. Yes, despite the fact that there was no live communication with clients, the work charter required name tags, probably to remember his name. Wow, that's a very unusual name. Nice to meet you.
It is the only unusual detail of my life.
An awkward pause hung in the air. The boss, standing behind Frank, frowned and cast a reproachful glance at Yu.
Frank is our security guard starting today. Oh, we have nothing to. A security guard.
Some of my important documents are missing.
There are only two of us. What kind of documents?
That I cannot tell you.
You mean you suspect me?
No, I do not. Eliminating any opportunity to continue this conversation, the boss turned around and went into his office. The room plunged into silence. Yu got down to some clerical work. Yu found a moment and took the morning letter out of his pocket. Glancing at the address line, a chill went through Yu's body for a split second. From Dorina. Yu was confused by the seal on the envelope, indicating the place of departure. No leave grad.
Is she really coming back to Kenot?
He said out loud. Suddenly, there was a curious voice saying, "Who is coming?" Yu did not answer and continued reading. Dear Yu, my doctor's suspicions are confirmed. I have the same disease that struck you. I thought it over and decided that we need to break up. It may seem that something like this should bring people closer, but it would be unfair to myself. We can have our last date on the morning of April 3rd in the Seafront Cafe, and then I will leave Kenot and go abroad. He felt dizzy. Another working day turned into night. The newly appointed watchman dozed off at his improvised post, an ordinary chair at the entrance to the office. Yu was sitting at his sturdy desk, imagining again and again how the shelves, stocked with books on jurisprudence, would break loose due to their own weight from friable concrete and break his head. Allowing himself a little break, Yu took his diary from his table drawer and made a note.
I never took a plate of soup at school lunches, even when I really wanted to. I was afraid to spill it in front of everyone, but I could put it on the table, which seems to be my life's pattern.
Feeling some satisfaction from writing that, he resumed work. There was a rustle of the janitor's broom and the trill of birds outside the window.
More accurate than the clock,
you thought. Chapter 2. On the second day of work, every sip of coffee came out of his nose as blood. Covering his nose with his hand, Yu went to the restroom. Excuse me. I wish I could narrate a little faster and keep you from getting bored, but it is difficult in my condition. Let's continue. Returning to his workplace, Yu saw Frank sitting at his table and leafing through his personal diary. Such violation of personal boundaries, it seemed, was about to put Yu out of temper.
Give it to me.
Here, take it. I was curious. In a moment, Yu hid his diary in the drawer of his desk. I am sorry if I offended you. The incident seemed to be over, but Frank's intrusive nature got the better of him. Can I ask you a question? Why does everyone in your notes die? Frowning, you ignore the question of the self-styled guard. The office phone rang. The ringing bored into his skull. Yu was buzzing together with the receiver. Yu involuntarily took off, but his head started spinning, and he was seeing dark spots. Holding onto the railing, Yu slid down the stairs and jumped out onto the street. He ran into his boss at the door, who stood there smoking.
Go to bed now. You can give me the rest of the papers tomorrow.
He did not have any strength left to work anyway. Although he left some things in the office, Yu was not in a hurry to go back. He sat down on the doorstep to rest. His vision was not particularly keen on the second day, so it took him a while to recognize a familiar face. Yu livened a little. A welcoming grin appeared on his face.
Hi, Max. Why are you not at work?
I dismissed my students a little early. How are you feeling?
As usual, another night shift.
If I was your father, I would have fired you long ago.
What will be left for me then?
Max answered with a question.
Do you want me to take your shift? They let me go, but there is still a lot of work to do.
Okay, I will talk to your father.
Don't you dare!
Max had a fit of grunting coughing, to Yu's surprise. Max tried to hide it very hard, but you noticed blood on his palms, which he quickly hid in his pocket. You decided to play along with his old friend, pretending that the latter had not given his secret away. Max tried to quietly wipe the traces of blood with a handkerchief, the corner of which was still visible from the pocket of his coat. The handkerchief was way too familiar. It was Darina's handkerchief. You said goodbye, refusing a favor, and went away. Coming home, you could barely stand on his feet. Notwithstanding his lack of sleep and fatigue, he could not fall asleep. The day flashed in his head on repeat. As for the breakup, he did not see himself as the victim. On the contrary, the entire time during his relationship with Darina, you wondered, why did she love him, drained of all strength and weak in spirit from birth? He did not anymore. Dizziness and pain subsided. At some point, he even thought about calling a doctor, just to make sure that he was still alive. But sleep took its toll. Chapter 3. The alarm went off. You faced a new day with weakness in his legs and a throbbing headache. All night long, he had been haunted by a painfully familiar nightmare. However, when he woke up, all tangible images dissolved, leaving only a nasty precipitate. His body led him to the kitchen in search of caffeine. Despite the early hours, he found his boss there. "How are you feeling?" You heard the question, but ignored it because of his sleepy state. "How difficult is it to answer?" You was pleased to hear the words of concern, even coming that way. "I'm sorry, Father." A cup in Yu's hand inevitably filled with bloody coffee. "You look like shit." "I feel like it." "I do not want to lose my last son, even someone like you." His father had his old wool suit on and was about to leave for work. "You do not have to go to the office today. Get some rest." "Okay, I will try." You went to his room and sat down at his desk. He took a pen and then remembered that he left his diary at work. You took some letters out of the drawer, which had not been sent for some reason. He took one of the letters and added a few lines to it. "Remember when grandfather made me listen to a rhythmic beat in the air? It is the heartbeat of a gigantic whale who swallowed our universe. And I believed him. What about you? You said it was just train wheels wobbling. So I decided that the whale had died a long time ago, which was better than it being just a fantasy. Do you understand? Asking you this is easy on paper because you will not answer me." Adding those lines, he felt he had completed something important and allowed himself to take a nap. Once he dozed off, he heard a knock on the door. Any unexpected knock on the door or telephone call could evoke severe paranoia in you. Because the knock on your door is louder and more alarming than on any other door. In a moment, there was rustling of envelopes slipping into the mail slot of the front door. Once he got up, his sleepiness was gone. Sorting out a stack of utility bills, you found a letter addressed to him. It was a letter from the sanatorium where he had undergone treatment that summer.
Dear Mr. Yu, I am afraid I have to inform you that you were misdiagnosed due to a serious mistake on my part. Your disease has a closed form, and the possibility of airborne or droplet transmission is excluded. To put your heart at ease, you can follow the precautions recommended to you earlier. However, I assure you that your disease is only focused on you. Accept my sincerest apologies. Your attending physician, K.
It would mean little to a healthy person. But to you, the news turned everything upside down. The disease got quiet. That time it did not try to get out, having used you as a disposable case. It was snugly snoozing. You took a shower, washing away the fuss of the last days, and decided to go to work. You did not tell anyone about this, but I am going to tell you confidentially. He believed that the disease manifested itself most fiercely when he went to bed. That was why you did not like sleep. His night fantasies became crazier with time. Every dream seemed to him a step closer to insanity. In order to control himself, he regularly looked at his hands and at the clock hands. You liked to alter his route to work every now and then. He would walk through the park, or that patio, or the arch, by which he used to run so often. All that in order to somehow distinguish between days. Otherwise, everything merged into one endless stream. He remembered that it was the last working day before the holiday when he came up to the office door. Entering the office, you noticed that Frank was not there. He grinned at that maliciously for some reason. He found a new batch of documents on his table. Pinning his name tag on his jacket, you got to work. The work did not take as much time on the last working day. He easily sorted out insurance files and, like a clerical deity, decided the client's fate, deciding who was to receive payments and who had mutilated himself with the purpose of deception. Having gone through most of the papers, he came across an extremely familiar storyline. Insurance form, life insurance, Form 42, fractures, serious illness, and death. Insurance does not cover self-inflicted injuries, self-inflicted infection, or suicide. Date of insurance, March 29th. Date of death, April 5th. Insurance sum, 203,500 coins. Salary, 15,000 coins. The client was an insurance agent. He bought a train ticket, later to be found under its wheels. Witness testimonies varied. According to some testimonies, he was pushed down onto the track. According to the other, he stumbled. Since the gap between the date of insurance and the date of death was so small, there was a note in the file indicating a suspected suicide. All risks were borne by the office that makes the final decision. You refused the insurance payout, figuring he had guessed the man's motives correctly. What guided him when making such a decision? Did he evoke his sense of justice, arrogance, selfishness, or maybe envy? His desktop got empty. He completed his work earlier than planned. Yet, he was dissatisfied. He felt that he had missed something. Not knowing what to do with himself, he went to his boss's office. He politely knocked a couple times on the door and appeared before his father.
Can I go? I have processed all the papers.
Taking the question as insolence, his father glanced first at the calendar, then at the clock.
You are dismissed.
Not quite realizing what to do next, you paused to think.
You can go.
Picking up his things, you left the office. Was he really on holiday? As soon as he stepped over the threshold, he felt unwell. His chest rattled like a moving train.
It seems that my headache just now lets me be free, so I can open my eyes and